The gavel slammed down like a gunshot, echoing through the tense silence of the courtroom. Gasps followed, then a scream, raw, guttural, from the back row. Janelle Carter collapsed, her knees buckling as she clutched the air. Her only son, Michael, age 17, had just been sentenced to life without parole. He didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He just stood still, hands cuffed, staring forward like something inside him had already died. As bailiffs rushed to restrain Janelle, a camera flash froze the moment, her twisted face, his vacant stare. The judge's lips moved, but no one heard. The courtroom had become a theater of grief and power. Michael turned to his mother, lips barely moving. No one else heard what he said, but the whisper was clear. This wasn't justice. This was revenge. The officers led him away, a boy walking into the shadows of a system built to swallow him whole. No appeals. No hope. Just silence and steel. Before the courtroom, before the trial, there was a boy who made honor roll every semester. Michael Carter didn't stand out. Quiet, polite, with a shy half-smile that rarely left his face. He helped his mother at home after her surgery, studied late, worked weekends at the corner diner. The teachers called him dependable. His classmates called him invisible. But Janelle called him her world. On the day of his arrest, he had come home from work with takeout, kissed his mother's cheek, and disappeared into his room with books in hand. Hours later, police lights painted the windows red and blue. Your son's been named in an incident, they said. No explanation. No warrant. Just zip ties and silence. Janelle stood barefoot on the porch as they dragged him out, screaming his name, the carton of food still warm in her hands. In that moment, the life she built split open. And the world made it clear, your kind shouldn't be here. The night of the party, Michael hadn't wanted to go. He told his friend Deshawn he was tired, had an early shift. But Deshawn had insisted. Just for an hour, he'd said. The house was packed, pulsing with music and laughter, the kind of place Michael never felt comfortable in. He stuck to the kitchen, sipped soda, checked his phone. And then the fight broke out. A bottle smashed. A scream. People ran. When the sirens came, Michael was standing over his friend's body, blood on his hands, though it wasn't his. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He just stared down, eyes wide, as if frozen in time. By the time the paramedics arrived, the story had already formed. Wrong boy, wrong place, wrong skin. One witness said he saw Michael punch. Another said he saw nothing. But the police heard what they wanted. And that's all it took. Janelle sat in the public defender's office for hours, eyes swollen, voice hoarse. The man behind the desk looked overworked and underpaid. It's not a strong case, he admitted. But the da's pushing hard. She begged him to look deeper, to interview more witnesses, to question the inconsistencies. He nodded, but his eyes were already on the next file. Michael's life was reduced to a stack of papers and a courtroom schedule. There were no resources for a defense, just a plea deal they pushed. He'll serve less time, the lawyer said. Janelle stood trembling with rage. My son didn't kill anyone. But the room stayed silent. The system didn't care about truth. It cared about closing the case. Fast. Clean. Forgettable. And if a black boy became the sacrifice, no one would blink twice. The day of the trial, the courtroom was already half decided. The jury looked bored. The prosecutor smiled too much. The defense stumbled over objections. And Michael sat there small in his suit, looking more like a child playing dress-up than a boy on trial for murder. Janelle watched from the gallery, her fists clenched, her prayers silent. Every time Michael looked back at her, she smiled, just barely, trying to hold him up from across the gulf of wood and law and injustice. She could feel the verdict long before it came. Every pause, every smirk, every refusal to let the truth breathe. When the judge finally read the sentence, Janelle's heart shattered in her chest. Not from surprise, but from the confirmation of what she already knew. The system never planned to let her son go free. Michael's bedroom remained untouched after his arrest. Janelle couldn't bring herself to move a thing. The bed was still neatly made. A stack of textbooks rested on the desk, bookmarked and color-coded. His chess trophies, debate medals, and old sneakers sat frozen in time, as if he'd be back any minute. She walked in late at night sometimes, tracing the edges of his handwriting on index cards left behind. One bore a quote, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." He'd highlighted it in yellow. She clutched it now like scripture. The world called her son a criminal, but here in this room he was still her baby. She sat on the edge of the bed and whispered promises into the silence, soft vows that she wouldn't stop. Not until someone listened. Not until someone saw him. Because Michael Carter wasn't a monster. He was a boy. And someone, somewhere, had to care. Janelle had never been one for protests or petitions. But now, every breath she took felt like a quiet scream. She walked the neighborhood with flyers, holding Michael's photo like it was proof of life. She went door to door, visiting classmates, coaches, teachers, anyone who might speak up. Some listened. Most didn't. "It's over," one teacher said, eyes cast down. Another muttered, "He was always so quiet. You just never know." Janelle's jaw clenched. They never knew him at all. But she kept walking, each step defying the silence swallowing her son. One elderly neighbor nodded solemnly and took a flyer. "Yours, Mama?" he asked. When she nodded, he whispered, "Then don't stop. Nobody else will." That night, Janelle stood at the corner where Michael used to wait for the school bus, holding a sign under the street lamp. And for a second, it almost looked like he was standing next to her again. She returned to the house where the party happened. The lawn was overgrown now. Windows boarded. No one answered the door. But Janelle stood there anyway, remembering the night, how Michael had said he didn't want to go, how she'd told him to have fun for once. She closed her eyes and tried to picture him there, surrounded by kids who barely knew his name. She walked around the side, searching for something, anything. A beer can. A blood stain. A memory. Nothing remained but echoes and rot. As she turned to leave, a voice called out from the sidewalk. A girl, nervous, pale, maybe 17, hugging her coat tight. "I remember that night," she said. Michael didn't do it, but he saw who did. Janelle stepped forward, hope flashing through her chest. "Can you tell me more?" The girl hesitated, then nodded. "Not here." She glanced over her shoulder. "They're watching." The girl's name was Elena. She met Janelle again 2 days later, quiet coffee shop, back booth, trembling hands wrapped around a chipped mug. She spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting toward the door. "There was a fight," she said. "But Michael didn't start it. He tried to help Deshawn." Then she paused. "I saw who hit him." Janelle leaned in. Elena whispered a name. It wasn't Michael's. It wasn't even a student's. A local boy. Connected. Protected. "But when I tried to tell the cops," Elena said, "they told me not to make things up." Janelle's hand found hers. "You have to say this out loud." Elena's eyes filled. "They'll bury me too." That night, Elena vanished. Her parents claimed she left town. No one could find her. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Just gone. And Janelle knew. Someone wanted her silent. Janelle stood in front of a local news station, a folder in hand, Michael's face paper clipped to the top. She waited 3 hours before someone agreed to hear her. A young reporter, green and eager, took her into a side room. She spilled everything. Elena, the evidence, the vanishing. He nodded, took notes. "I'll pitch it," he said. But she never saw it air. Days passed. Then weeks. The reporter stopped returning calls. When she finally reached the station, a cold voice replied, "We're not pursuing that angle." Janelle hung up slowly, her hand trembling. Another door slammed shut. Another truth buried. Alone in her car, she screamed. A low, guttural sound that tore through her throat and fogged up the windows. She slammed the steering wheel until her hands bled. Her scream didn't reach anyone. But she made a vow. If no one would give her a voice, she'd take one. Every wall Janelle hit only made her push harder. She stopped attending church. The whispers had become unbearable. It's God's will. You have to let go. But Janelle wasn't letting go. She was holding on for dear life. She visited the site of the party again, this time with a notebook, sketching the layout, the exits, the possible angles. She mapped out where the fight had happened, where witnesses said Michael had stood. She interviewed neighbors. One old woman said she saw people running, one boy limping. Another said there was a flash, like a phone camera, right before the sirens. Janelle started collecting names, timelines, drawing connections on her kitchen wall. The same wall that once held family recipes and birthday calendars now held photographs, thumbtacks, and red string. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was an investigator. A woman turned inside out. And she was starting to see something no one else had cared to. She found the party's live stream. Someone had uploaded it that night on a private account. Grainy. Shaky. Mine. But the timestamp matched. Janelle sat for hours, replaying every second, eyes scanning the chaos for something. Anything. And then, in one blurry corner of the screen, she saw it. Michael, arms out, trying to pull two boys apart. Not fighting, breaking it up. Behind him, another figure moved fast, too fast. The resolution failed, but the motion was unmistakable. Someone else struck Deshawn. Janelle rewound it again. And again. Every time, the scene sharpened in her mind. The video didn't prove innocence. It didn't prove guilt either, but it contradicted everything the court had accepted. She took screenshots, enhanced the shadows, isolated frames. She wasn't tech-savvy, but desperation sharpened her instincts. She stared at the grainy silhouette and whispered, "I see you." The system had missed it. Or worse, ignored it. Michael's letters were changing. At first, they were hopeful, updates from prison classes, stories of new books. But now, they came less often, the handwriting shaky, the tone darker. "Mom, the nights are the worst," one letter read. "There's no sky, no quiet, just screams and metal and silence." He wrote about solitary, about boys disappearing for days. He said the guards laughed when he asked for more paper. "I'm still here, Mom," he wrote. But not for long. Janelle held the page to her chest, rocking slowly at the edge of her bed. Each word felt like a final breath. She called the prison. No answers. She called again. And again. Each ring became a battle cry. Michael was slipping. She could feel it. And if the system planned to bury him alive, they'd have to bury her first. Janelle's former lawyer refused to help. "There's no grounds to reopen," he said flatly. She stared at him, at his clean desk and practiced detachment. "You didn't even try," she replied. He shrugged. "It's not personal." She walked out mid-sentence. She no longer needed polite apathy. She needed someone who gave a damn. That's when she remembered Andre, Michael's childhood friend turned amateur coder. He owed Michael a favor. "You want a miracle or a breach?" he asked, smirking. "I want the truth," she said. Andre dove in. Hours passed. Code flickered on his screens like rain. He found things, metadata, hidden accounts, deleted footage logs. "Someone cleaned this," he said. But not perfectly. In the code's shadows he saw footprints. A pattern. Janelle stood behind him, silent but burning. For the first time, the cracks in the wall were visible. Andre called her at 2:13 a.m. His voice was different. Sharp. Electric. "I found something." Janelle drove through the night, heart pounding. He showed her a file, metadata from a traffic cam across the street from the party house. It had been erased from court submissions, deleted from discovery. But it existed. This angle, he said, shows the whole front yard. It's not a full answer, but it proves the prosecution hid something. Janelle stared at the grainy footage. Michael wasn't even near Deshawn when the fatal blow landed. She whispered, "They lied." Andre looked at her. Someone buried this on purpose. And just like that, the story changed. She had truth. Not enough for justice, but enough to scare someone. Who had access to this footage, she asked. Andre hesitated. Only law enforcement, and the Diaz office. The storm had begun. The phone rang once. Then again. On the third ring, Janelle picked up, expecting silence. Instead, a low voice, unfamiliar, tense. "You were right," it said. "The tape exists." She froze. "Who is this?" The line clicked dead. She stood there gripping the phone like it might scream again. Her mind raced. Who had called? Why now? She called Andre, who traced the number. Burner. No name. No signal. But whoever it was had confirmed what she feared and hoped. The missing footage hadn't been destroyed. Just hidden. Janelle's instincts went into overdrive. She started digging into old friends of Michael's, kids who might have known someone with access. One name surfaced, Corey Blanche. A dropout. Quiet. Used to hang with Michael until things got dark. She found him in a junkyard garage on the edge of town. "I don't want trouble," he muttered. "Then tell me the truth," she said. And he did. A lot more than she expected. Corey handed her a USB stick. "You didn't get this from me," he said. "And don't come back." On it, raw video from a traffic cam, clearer than Andre's version. It showed the front yard, the crowd, the chaos. And there in slow motion, Michael stepping back, not forward, arms raised, palms open. And the attacker, someone else. Janelle paused the video, zoomed in. The boy's face caught half-lit by the porch bulb. It wasn't just any kid. She'd seen that face before, on a campaign poster. He was the Diaz nephew. A golden child, quietly sent away after the trial. "This is why they buried it," Andre said. "It would have destroyed everything." Janelle stared at the screen, jaw locked. They knew. The court. The maybe even the judge. She felt sick. Betrayed. But not broken. She had evidence now. Truth in a file. And in this war, that meant she finally had a weapon. Janelle printed stills, organized timelines, drafted statements. She called a lawyer, an old friend who'd once worked civil rights cases. "It's dangerous," he warned. "They'll come after you. Let them," she replied. They filed a motion to reopen the case. The clerk barely looked up. "We'll review," she muttered. Days passed. Then a week. No response. Then Janelle received an envelope at her door. No stamp, no return address. Inside were photographs of Michael in prison. Bruises, isolation, despair. No words. No threat. But the message was clear. Back off. She took the photos and laid them across the kitchen table, heart racing. Then she picked up her phone and began dialing newsrooms. One by one. Most didn't respond. Some hung up. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Because now she understood something more terrifying than silence. The system doesn't just ignore the truth. It hunts those who find it. In a downtown diner, a journalist finally agreed to meet. Her name was Ree. Sharp eyes, fast fingers, no patience for fluff. Janelle laid it all out. The hidden footage, the cover-up, the Diaz connection. Rhea didn't blink. "If this is real," she said, "they're going to bury you. And me." "Let them try," Janelle said. Rhea smiled thinly and took the drive. Within days, she confirmed the boy's identity. Nephew of Robert Langford. Transferred schools. Record sealed. She traced it to a sealed juvenile file, buried deep. They knew, she said. They all knew. Janelle's breath caught. Can you publish it? Not yet, Rhea replied. But I can make sure people start asking questions. She leaned forward. You ready to burn down a courthouse? Janelle didn't flinch. I'm ready to drag it into the light. News whispers turned into murmurs. Then, a low roar. Anonymous emails surfaced. Files, emails, internal memos from the Diaz office. Someone on the inside had started leaking. The documents showed deliberate omissions, communications about protecting the office, even talks of scrubbing juvenile records. Rhea's story dropped online first. It exploded. Hashtags. Outrage. The public wanted blood. The DA held a press conference. He stammered through denials. Janelle watched from home, arms folded. Michael called that night. They know now, he said. His voice sounded different. Alive, for the first time in months. They're saying my name. Janelle closed her eyes and let a tear fall. They can't unhear it, she said. The tide had turned. The fight wasn't over. But for the first time, justice wasn't a dream. It was waking up. And it had her son's face. Janelle walked into the courthouse again, the same one that had condemned her son. But this time, she wasn't broken. She wasn't alone. A crowd had gathered, journalists, supporters, activists. Her heels clicked against the marble floor like a war drum. In her hands, the drive, the documents, the proof. She passed the metal detectors, the whispers, the stares. Inside, the clerk at the filing desk raised her brows. Another appeal? She said. No, Janelle replied. A reckoning. She handed over the files with steady hands. The woman scanned the front page, her expression stiffening. This is going to cause trouble. Janelle leaned in. Good. She turned and walked away, each step echoing like a challenge. The courthouse walls hadn't changed, but she had. And she wasn't asking for justice anymore. She was demanding it. The judge refused to reopen the case. Insufficient grounds, he said. His gavel struck not just the desk, but every hope she'd carried into that courtroom. Reporters stood outside, waiting for a breakdown. She gave them silence instead. But that night, something broke loose online. Someone, maybe the same insider, leaked internal emails from the Diaz office. They weren't just hiding evidence. They were discussing strategy to protect the nephew. Janelle sat at her kitchen table as the notifications rolled in. Thousands of shares, headlines erupting. News anchors used words like scandal, obstruction, cover-up. She stared at the screen, hands trembling. Then came the knock. A young woman from the DOJ. Ms. Carter, she asked. We're opening a federal investigation. Janelle's knees gave slightly. Her breath hitched. Finally, she whispered. Finally, someone's listening. Michael was brought back into court, this time not as a criminal, but as the center of a collapsing prosecution. Cameras flashed as he was led in. Thinner now, his skin pale under the harsh lighting. But his eyes, they had something in them again. Fire, one. The courtroom murmured as the footage was played. Jaws tightened. The D sat rigid, his face gray. And then the judge called Michael to speak. The boy stood slowly, hands clasped, voice steady. You all saw what you wanted to see, he said. You saw a thug, a threat. You never saw me. You stole everything, and you sleep just fine. The room fell silent. The judge cleared his throat. The gavel didn't slam this time. It rested, quiet, almost ashamed. Michael sat down, and for the first time in years, he was heard. When the verdict was overturned, no one cheered, not in the courtroom. It wasn't joy. It was a collective exhale. The judge's voice was somber as he declared Michael's conviction vacated. Janelle covered her mouth. Michael lowered his head. The moment felt too fragile to celebrate. Outside, however, the crowd erupted. Signs waved. Voices chanted. Reporters swarmed. But Michael didn't pause. He walked through it all, past the cameras, past the noise. Janelle caught up to him near the courthouse steps. "Michael," she said. He turned. They didn't speak. She just pulled him in, holding him like the world couldn't take him again. And for a moment, time stood still, just mother and son beneath a sky that no longer felt so heavy. Later that night, Michael sat alone in his room, no longer a cell. He traced his fingers across his old textbooks, ran his hand over the worn desk. Janelle stood in the doorway, unsure whether to speak. "It feels smaller," he said. She nodded. "You grew." He looked at the window, watching the wind shift the curtains. "I miss the air," he whispered. He turned toward her. "Thank you for not giving up." Her voice cracked. "You don't thank me for breathing." They sat together in the quiet, no TV, no noise, just the ticking of the clock and the sound of a life trying to begin again. He picked up a photo of Deshawn. "I wish I'd said something sooner," he murmured. "I thought silence was safer." Janelle took his hand. "Not anymore," she said. And in that stillness a new beginning stirred. The morning after his release, Michael stepped outside barefoot. The grass felt foreign beneath his feet. Birds chirped overhead. Sunlight warmed his skin, soft, not fluorescent. He tilted his face up and just stood there, breathing. Janelle watched from the porch, coffee in hand, not wanting to interrupt. He looked back at her, that half smile, older now, edged with pain, tugging at his mouth. "You ever forget how to be free?" he asked. She didn't answer. He walked to the sidewalk and looked both ways, like he was crossing into another world. Cars passed. A jogger waved. No one stared. No one screamed. But inside he felt 1,000 eyes still watching. 7 years behind walls doesn't vanish overnight. He turned slowly, taking in the street, the mailboxes, the sky. "It's still here," he whispered. "The world, it's still here." And for the first time in years, he let himself believe maybe he still belonged in it. Michael struggled to adjust. Crowds made him flinch. Loud noises triggered flashes. At the grocery store, a sudden shout made him freeze in the cereal aisle. Janelle had to gently guide him out, whispering, "You're safe. You're here." He didn't sleep much. Nights were long and haunted. The bed was too soft. The quiet too loud. He wrote in a journal, his therapist's idea. "How do I explain that time doesn't move the same when no one says your name?" he wrote. Still, he tried. He cleaned the garage, walked the block, made dinner with Janelle, burnt spaghetti, but it made them laugh. Every day he practiced being whole. Some days he failed. But others, he almost remembered the boy he used to be. One evening, he looked at himself in the mirror and whispered, "You're still here." It didn't sound convincing, but it didn't sound like a lie either. One afternoon, Michael visited Deshawn's grave. The cemetery was quiet, just wind, trees, and stone. He carried no flowers. Just guilt. He knelt and touched the headstone, fingers tracing the name like Braille. "I should have spoken up," he whispered. "I thought silence would protect me. It didn't." The wind picked up, rustling the grass. He blinked hard, eyes wet. "They made me believe I was nothing. I'm sorry I let them." He stayed there a long time, knees on dirt, hands in fists. At one point he looked up at the sky, gray and overcast. "They tried to erase you too," he said. "But I won't let them." Janelle stood in the distance, not interrupting, just watching. Her son, broken, rebuilding, choosing his own kind of prayer. A vow. Not to forget. Not to be quiet. And not to walk away again. The city council held a hearing. Public outrage had reached their doorstep. Janelle was invited to speak. She stood at the podium, lights hot on her face, council members seated like statues. She read from no paper. She spoke from memory, from scars. This city let a lie bury my son, and no one asked why. Her voice was steady, sharp. How many more boys will we sacrifice for the illusion of order? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Michael was not the first, and if nothing changes, he won't be the last. When she finished, the room stood. Not everyone, but enough. Michael watched from the back, shoulders squared, pride stitched into every line of his face. He didn't smile, but he didn't look down either. He watched his mother carve truth into stone. And this time, the system had to hear it. In the weeks that followed, new legislation was proposed. Prison oversight, camera record retention, prosecutorial review boards. It wasn't justice. Not yet. But it was movement. Janelle volunteered for a justice reform group. Michael joined too, speaking to students, meeting other exonerees. One boy asked him, "Are you still angry?" Michael paused. "Yeah," he said. "But I'm louder now." Later that evening, he and Janelle sat on the porch, watching the sky fade to stars. "Do you think it ever gets easier?" he asked. She didn't answer right away. "I think we get stronger," she said. "Or maybe we just learn how to carry it." Michael leaned back, legs stretched out, eyes on the stars. "I used to count them from my bunk," he said. "Now I can't count high enough." And in the hush of that night, healing didn't feel like a destination. It felt like forward. Michael stood outside the courthouse, older now, sharper around the edges. He wore a black coat, collar raised against the morning wind. His eyes scanned the building, same stone steps, same engraved names, same cold face of justice. But it looked different now. He wasn't walking in this time. He was watching someone else. A boy, maybe 16, led in by two officers. Black hoodie, hands cuffed, eyes wide with the same silent question Michael once carried. "Why me?" Reporters milled nearby, too distracted to notice him. Michael didn't speak. He didn't rush in. He just watched, observing the machinery still at work, still grinding. He felt the urge to run, to shout, to do something. Instead, he stayed still, letting the weight of it sit on him one last time. This place took everything. But now, he was standing outside of it, free. And that meant something. Inside, a new trial began. The boy's mother sat where Janelle once had, clutching a photo, jaw locked in prayer. Michael recognized the posture, the quiet begging for a miracle. He didn't know the boy's name, didn't know the charge, but the story was too familiar. Same faces in power, dull. Same postures of authority. Different child. Same pattern, wall. Michael's fists curled. He wanted to pull her aside to say, "Don't let them tell you who your son is." But he stayed outside. His story wasn't over, but it wasn't this anymore. And yet, watching her heart break, her silence, he felt the old fire flicker again. He knew then that the fight wasn't just about his freedom. It was about the boy being led inside, about every mother still screaming into locked doors. He turned away, not from weakness, but from choice. And it was the hardest thing he ever did. Michael walked away from the courthouse, not fast, not slow, just steady. The city bustled around him, uncaring. But every footstep was defiant. He passed a schoolyard, a bus stop, a mural of justice with cracked paint. He saw kids laughing, unaware of the ghosts in their future. He passed them and nodded to a janitor sweeping the sidewalk. "Good morning," he said. The man paused. "You too, son." Just words. But they landed like grace. At a corner, Michael stopped and looked up. A billboard with the DA's face had been replaced by one reading, "Truth Matters," funded by the same reform group Janelle now worked with. He let himself smile, just for a second. It wasn't a victory lap. It was a breath, a pause. Then he moved forward again. Because the system hadn't stopped, but neither had he. That night, Janelle placed a photo on the mantel, Michael's graduation picture. He never got to walk across the stage, but she printed it anyway. In the photo he smiles, a younger version, frozen in hope. She lit a candle beside it. Not for mourning, for memory. Her living room felt fuller now. The silence wasn't hollow. It was healing. Michael walked in holding 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to her, then sat beside her on the couch. "You okay?" he asked. "Getting there," she said. They clinked mugs like a toast. She leaned into him, head resting against his shoulder. The TV played softly in the background. No breaking news. No scandal. Just the evening breeze through the window, and a mother, a son, and the space between trauma and peace being filled with quiet. The next morning, Michael stood once more outside the courthouse. A different trial was beginning, but this time he wasn't just an observer. He faced the camera crew waiting on the steps. A reporter approached, mic in hand. "What would you say to the system today?" she asked. He paused, exhaled. "Justice isn't blind," he said. "It's just expensive." The crowd went quiet. A few people nodded. Some clapped. But Michael didn't stay. He turned, walked down the steps, and disappeared into the city. No speeches. No applause. Just the sound of footsteps and a gavel echoing in memory. Somewhere inside, another boy's fate was being decided. But outside, Michael walked with purpose. His scars didn't vanish. But now they guided him. Because truth doesn't end when the credits roll. It walks beside us, silent, relentless, real.